That sound, for centuries, it was the sound of wealth, of coins, of jewelry, of treasure. But today, that same sound has a different meaning. It's the sound of a silent revolution, a sound echoing in server farms, on solar farms, and in the most advanced machines ever built. Everyone thinks they know the story of silver. They're wrong. Because while the world was looking at jewelry stores and coin shops, three massive, relentless industries were quietly rewriting the entire rulebook. They're not just buying silver, they're consuming it. And this consumption is creating a fundamental, irreversible shift in the very nature of this metal. Welcome to the new reality of silver. The Great Disconnect. Let us start with the single most important chart that every investor needs to burn into their memory. For over 100 years, the story of silver demand was a simple one. It was a precious metal. Its value was driven by adornment, by currency, by store of value. Ask anyone on the street who uses the most silver. They'll say jewelers. And until very recently, they'd be right. But the data now tells a completely different story. The Silver Institute's 2025 World Silver Survey reveals a seismic break from the past. In 2024, total jewelry fabrication consumed 208.7 million troy ounces of silver. That is a significant number, until you see the context. That 208.7 million ounces represented just 18% of total global demand. Let me repeat that. 18%. 10 years ago, jewelry's share was over 30%. Its dominance has been cut almost in half. So the multi-billion-dollar question is, if jewelry is only taking 18% of the silver pie, where is the other 82% going? It's not going into vaults. It's not being hoarded by billionaires. It's being used, consumed, built into things that will never, ever be melted down again for their silver content. This is the great disconnect between public perception and industrial reality, and it changes everything about how we must value this metal. The new king, electronics and electrical demand. The new king of silver consumption is the electronics and electrical sector. This is not a contender. It is the undisputed heavyweight champion. In 2023, this sector alone consumed 445.1 million ounces of silver. Let's put that in perspective. That is more than double the entire global jewelry demand. It represents a staggering 38% of all the silver used on planet Earth in a single year. And the growth is not linear, it's accelerating. The 2023 figure was a 20% jump from the year before. One sector, eating more and more of a finite supply year after year. But we need to go deeper. Electronics is a broad term. Where exactly is all this silver going? The answer lies in three explosive subtrends. First, the foundation. Pervasive consumer electronics. Every smartphone, every tablet, every laptop, every smart device you own contains silver. Tiny amounts, 0.2 to 0.3 grams per smartphone, seem insignificant. But scale is the magic, and the devil here. Samsung, Apple, and others manufacture hundreds of millions of these devices annually. Those fractions of a gram compound into millions of ounces of industrial demand that is as consistent as the sunrise. But this is just the baseline, the old world, the AI and high-performance computing accelerant. The second, and far more powerful driver within electronics, is the artificial intelligence and high-performance computing revolution. This is not incremental growth. This is a step change in demand density. Look at the corporate signals. In their Q3 2025 earnings, Samsung reported record revenue in their memory business, specifically driven by the ramp-up of HBM3E production, the high-bandwidth memory that is the literal lifeblood of AI data centers. They're already sampling the next generation, HBM4. Why does this matter for silver? Because these are not ordinary chips. The systems that train large language models like GPT, that run complex simulations, that power cloud infrastructure, they demand insane amounts of processing power. And with that power comes immense heat. Silver possesses the highest electrical and thermal conductivity of any element on the periodic table. For managing the flow of electricity and the dispersion of heat in these ultra-dense, mission-critical systems, there is simply no equal. It is non-negotiable for optimal performance and reliability. This is creating a double whammy for demand. Not only are we building more data centers, with global IT power capacity exploding from less than 1 gigawatt in 2000 to nearly 50 gigawatts today, but the silver content per unit of this advanced hardware is also increasing. More sophisticated circuitry, more advanced interconnects, all demand more silver. Samsung plans to embed Galaxy AI into over 400 million devices by end of 2025. That will double their 2024 target. This migration of AI from the cloud to your pocket further embeds silver into the fabric of our technological future. This isn't speculative demand. This is structural, embedded, and growing. The green energy anchor, solar power. The third pillar of electronics demand comes from a sector that represents the purest form of structural growth: solar photovoltaics. In 2024, the solar industry absorbed 197.6 million ounces of silver. Let that sink in. Nearly 200 million ounces. That represents 19% of total global demand. Back in 2014, solar's share was just 5%. In one decade, it has nearly quadrupled its share of the silver market. The physics are simple. In a standard photovoltaic panel, silver paste is applied to silicon wafers to form the conductive lines that capture and transport the electrical current generated by sunlight. Each panel uses approximately 20 grams of silver. Now, critics will point to silver thrifting. They're right. Manufacturers are engineering ways to use less silver per panel through finer lines, new pastes, and different printing techniques. The Silver Institute itself notes sharp reductions in silver loadings per panel. But here's the critical, non-negotiable point that changes the entire narrative. Total solar silver consumption remains elevated and is still growing. Why? Because while the silver per panel is slowly decreasing, the number of panels being installed is exploding exponentially. The International Energy Agency projects thousands of gigawatts of new solar capacity through 2030. China alone increased its solar capacity by 45% in 2024. It's a simple equation. Less silver per unit multiplied by a radically higher number of units still equals massive, sustained total demand. The volume growth is overwhelming the efficiency gains. Solar has become a perpetual, gargantuan sink for industrial silver. The electric vehicle. Tsunami. If electronics is the king and solar is the powerful anchor, then the electric vehicle sector is the tsunami gathering force offshore. This is the fastest growing source of silver demand on the planet. The transition is a simple matter of metal physics. A traditional internal combustion engine car uses silver in various sensors and electrical contacts, typically between 15 and 28 grams per vehicle. A hybrid electric vehicle uses more, 18 to 34 grams. But a full battery electric vehicle, a BEV, requires 25 to 50 grams. From the low end of a gas car to the high end of an EV, we are looking at nearly a tripling of silver content. This silver is not optional. It is embedded in the heart of the EV. Battery management systems, BMS. Silver contacts and components ensure superior conductivity and reliability in high current environments, monitoring and balancing hundreds of battery cells. Power electronics. The inverters and converters that manage the flow of electricity between the battery, motor, and charging system rely on silver-based components for efficiency. Charging infrastructure. Every public fast charger, every commercial charging hub contains silver to handle efficient, high-power energy transfer. The Oxford Economics forecast is stark. EVs will overtake internal combustion engines as the primary source of automotive silver demand by 2027. By 2031, they project EVs will account for 59% of all automotive silver use. This isn't just about replacing 80 million internal combustion engines built each year. It's about building an entirely new, parallel global infrastructure of charging stations and grid upgrades, all of which will be hungry for silver's unique properties. The demand multiplier from the EV revolution is almost incalculable. The shadow buyer. Defense and military. Now we come to the most opaque, secretive, and potentially impactful buyer of all, the global defense and military sector. This is where public data ends and deduction begins. Exact consumption figures are classified, but from budgets, procurement documents, and technical papers, we can glimpse a staggering reality. Military demand for silver has two chilling characteristics. It is massive, and it is non-recyclable. Consider a single Tomahawk land attack cruise missile. Reports indicate it contains approximately 500 troy ounces of silver, over 15 kilograms, in its electronics and guidance systems. Upon detonation, that silver is vaporized into microscopic particles. It is gone forever. No scrap recovery, no recycling. Now, scale that concept. Modern military drones, produced by the thousands, use silver oxide batteries and silver-based sensors. Torpedoes with silver zinc batteries can contain 5 to 50 kilos of silver. The new generation of all-electric submarines reportedly requires between 3 and 8 metric tons of silver per vessel for its battery and propulsion systems. Advanced aircraft like the F-35 use silver in avionics for its reliability in high-stress, high-interference environments. Starlink satellites, which now form a critical military communications layer, contain an estimated 6 to 18 kilon of silver each for shielding and circuitry. With thousands in orbit, that's a significant off-planet stockpile. Global defense spending hit $2.7 trillion in 2024, up nearly 10% in a single year. Forecasts see it reaching over $6 trillion by 2035. The spending is directed towards increasingly high-tech, electronic, and connected systems. And silver, due to its conductivity and shielding properties, is an irreplaceable component in many of them. Most importantly, military demand is not price-sensitive. National security does not accept substitutes that compromise performance. If a system is designed for silver, it will use silver, regardless of the price. This creates a bedrock of demand that does not fluctuate with market whims. It is a constant, hidden, and growing vacuum pulling silver out of the market. The supply-demand cliff. Let's synthesize the tidal wave. On one side, we have demand: electronics, 405 pimaplazas, solar, 197 plazas, EVs, exploding, and defense, classified but huge. This drove total industrial demand to a record 680.5 million ounces in 2024. On the other side, we have supply. Mine production is relatively inelastic, stuck around 820 million ounces annually. Recycling helps, but it cannot keep pace with this new consumption profile. The result? The silver market has been in a physical deficit for 4 consecutive years. The cumulative shortfall from 2021 through 2024 reached a mind-bending 678 million ounces. To understand how large that is, 678 million ounces is equivalent to 10 months of total global mine production. The world has been eating into above-ground stockpiles, inventories in exchanges, vaults, and warehouses for 4 straight years to feed this industrial machine. This is the fundamental picture: relentless, structurally growing demand, meeting constrained, slow-to-respond supply, leading to a persistent and deepening physical deficit. The investment, imperative, and conclusion. So, what does this mean for you, the investor, the observer? It means the old models for valuing silver are obsolete. You can no longer look at it purely through the lens of inflation, the dollar, or gold's movements. While those factors still play a role, they are now secondary to the primary driver: industrial necessity. Silver has undergone a permanent reclassification. It is no longer just a precious metal. It is a critical industrial commodity. It is as essential to the 21st century infrastructure, to our green energy transition, our digital AI economy, and our national security, as copper is to wiring or lithium is to batteries. This creates a market dynamic with far less volatility on the downside from industrial users. If the price dips, manufacturers don't rush to sell. They may rush to secure longer-term supply. The demand floor is now built on granite, not sand. The investment landscape for silver has been fundamentally and irrevocably altered. The secret buyers have been revealed. They are not speculators in trading pits. They are the titans of technology, the builders of our green future, and the guardians of national security. Their hunger for silver is insatiable, permanent, and growing, and they are changing the rules of the game for everyone. This is the new reality. Understand it, or be left behind.